constraints are money, right? So we have various constraints, but the first is how much money do we have to spend? But there are other constraints that may occur as well. So let's start with the budget constraint. How much can I afford? So with the budget set, it represents all the choices we can make, and the budget line sets the maximum of what we can afford. And this is best seen in a graph. So keeping the same axes, where we have good X on a horizontal axis and good Y on the vertical axis, this line in green represents the maximum you can spend. Because if you have M, which is income, divided by the price of Y, that's the most you could buy of Y. If you have X and you have M in income, M divided by the price of X is the maximum you could buy of X. So this line represents the maximum you could buy. The budget set is everything in the shaded blue region. Is, yeah, you can afford anything in the blue, but you actually can afford all the way up to the maximum, which is the green line. So the budget line is going to be quite important because we're seeking to say what is the maximum level of satisfaction we can reach, and it's always going to be at the budget line. Now let's look at two other points. Bundle G, you can buy that, but you can buy more. So our assumption is that, sure, you can be here, but a choice will be made to be on this maximum satisfaction line. Or you could be out here, bundle H. Well, not really. You can't afford that. You'd love to be there. And now what can cause you to afford budget H? This is a little preview of later. Well, what if this green line moves up to H? In other words, you got a raise, right? So this is not in the current opportunity set for us. This is, but in time, perhaps prices will change or income drops where we're down to G, or maybe we'll get more money and we're up to H, right? So this is some of the dynamics we're going to be using when we look at the interaction of the budget line and indifference curves. Another important concept is the market rate of substitution. Here we have a straight line representing the budget line. We can buy 5 of item Y and 0 of X, or buy 10 of item X and 0 of Y. And embedded in this is a slope, or a rate of substitution. Here we have 2 points, the points represented by 2 and 4 right there, or 4 and 3 right there. The slope is rise over run, you remember that? So if we start with point here, it's the rise is 4 minus the rise for the next point, which is 3. So the numerator is 4 minus 3. Then the run is here, it's 2 minus 4. And that simplifies to minus 1 over 2. And that is the rate of substitution, that for every 2 of X that we have, we can only get 1 of Y. Next, we'll look at what happens if your income goes up or down. I gave you a preview of this a couple of slides ago, but let's look at what happens. If we get more money, the budget line increases in a parallel way because the prices haven't changed. So whatever you could buy before, we just can buy more of in the same ratio or the same slope. However, if you have an income cut, it goes the other way. So you'll be able to afford less, and therefore you'll have to make different choices. So the summary here is as income goes up or down, it shifts in a parallel line fashion, up or down, away from the original budget line. Now let's look at what happens with price changes. So this is an initial state where we have a budget line based on a certain price of Y and a certain price of X, and that gives us our line. Now what happens if we have a new price for the item X? So if the price goes down, the curve shifts away from 0. Why? Because you could buy more. So if we had a certain amount of income and we divide it by a higher price, we get this fairly low number of quantity. But if that same level of income is now going to be buying something at a lower price, the line will shift outwards because you could buy more with the same amount of income. Notice your income didn't go up. The price went down. So that's why it shifts in that way. Why does it not shift here? Because Y's price did not move. So this is an example of X price dropping, Y price staying still. So let's look at an exercise of the budget constraint just to make sure you know the dynamics of the choices between X and Y. So we'll go to Excel. Here's the same information that we saw previously. So what are your choices? I have X and y. Now, the reason I say this is that in some examples, you look at the axis and it'll be x and all the other choices. So that's why I'm just forcing your eye to look at what are the notes beside each of the axes on the graph. So how much budget do we have? Well, we have $100, okay? So how much of x can we buy? Well, if we have $100 and each item of x costs, in this case, $1, then we can buy 100 of x's. And in this case, if we bought 100 of x's and 0 of y, that spends $100. How many of y can we buy? Well, we have $100, but each one costs 5. So we can only buy 20. So what's the market rate of substitution? It's the price of x, which is 1, divided by the price of y, which is 5. So it's negative 0.2 or negative 1/5. For every 5 items of x, we can only get 1 item of y. So that's the rate of substitution.